Over the past 75 years, more than 10,000 chemicals have entered our food supply, but the EU allows just 300 additives. At Thrive Market, we prioritize quality, banning over 1,000 ingredients found in conventional grocery stores. Our Healthy Swap scanner helps you find better versions of your pantry essentials without the junk, dyes, or fillers, and everything is delivered right to your doorstep. So shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health at thrivemarket.com/get started for 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift.
Well, hello, everyone. It's your girl, Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. Now, let me tell you what this show is about. So, this is the show where we like to have that real talk. We like to talk about things pertaining to immigration. We talk about education. We talk about special needs, disabilities. We talk about entrepreneurship a lot. We cover neurodiversity. We cover homeschooling. We cover a lot of different topics in that specific scope, as we are a tutoring company. But this is the show where we like to have real discussions and we like to get into the nitty gritty of it all. And today, I am excited about today because today I have a repeat topic. I love it when I bring topics back. And let me tell you what that topic is that I am bringing back. That topic is Life as an Immigrant Part 2. So we are continuing this discussion, and I have a guest who is going to help me with this discussion. It's a brand new guest, so she's new to the hot seat, and I look forward to hearing her life story and even grilling her about it. So I'm excited. Let's get right to it. So my guest today is Caurel Richards, and let me tell you about Caurel. Her mission is to help clients with complex childhood trauma break down barriers and release unhealthy habits and patterns to rediscover freedom and peace of mind. All right, so without further ado, I'm just going to bring Caurel to the stage.
Hello, hello.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So we are going to talk about your journey, being an immigrant and all the nuts and bolts to that.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna, let's get right to it. I just want you to get started. So please go ahead and share your story.
Life as an immigrant. My life as an immigrant started years ago. I'm 35 today, and it started, I would say, at the age of 16 when I decided, I wanted to move from Jamaica and live in the States. And boy, that was a ride that really didn't last that long. It lasted for about 2 years. And then I ended up returning to Jamaica to then move to another country where I'm now currently in Canada. And I've been living here for the past 7 years. Lovely 7 years, by the way, because I was able to rediscover who I was at my core. So I'm grateful for where that journey has taken me, in short.
All right. So let's start from the beginning, right? So what made you what was happening around the time that you decided that you're going to leave Jamaica?
As a 16-year-old, you know how we are at times. We just want to do things our way. And I think I was no different from the average 16-year-old. I just wanted to leave the country because home wasn't somewhere that I felt safe. It was, to me, boring because I was experiencing the same things over and over. And a part of it too was that I was afraid of not living up to the expectations that were set for me in terms of education. So I remember telling you that I took the CXC and then I left Jamaica. I left Jamaica around July, waiting for the results to come out in August. I was like, if I'm going to get the results, let me wait for the results in a different country. So just in case they weren't that good, at least I wouldn't be present with my mother at the time to get the results. And if they weren't good, then I'd be safe. Lo and behold, the results were pretty good either way, but I guess I just didn't have the confidence to stick around. And I think I was at a point where I really wanted to experience something else. And sixth form wasn't something that I wanted to experience in Jamaica, which is the way that we do it is by forms, which is equivalent to grades. So seventh grade would be first form. So sixth form would be 12th and 13th grade in the States. And I was just like, I wasn't really looking forward to whatever sixth form was going to offer to me. So I decided I wanted to go on an adventure, and I moved to New York when I was 16, and I went to high school for 2 years.
All right. So I think you had like, if I recall, like a back and forth type thing. So you did the last 2 years of, is it secondary school?
Okay, so technically, I graduated the first half of high school in Jamaica because we go from 7th grade up to 11th grade. That's the first half, which is what we call like lower school. And then upper school, which is what I was calling sixth form, is 12th and 13th, which is sixth form, right? That's what I was saying. And I had already graduated from lower school. So I graduated from the 11th grade and then decided I wanted to leave and go to the States. So I continued high school. While I finished lower in Jamaica, I actually didn't finish according to the States. So I went to 12th and 13th grade.
In the States?
In the States, yeah.
Oh, where in the States?
I went to Newburgh Free Academy. Call it out by name.
Well, what state is that?
It's New York. It's upstate New York, just by Poughkeepsie. Yeah. Whew.
Oh, you went up there. What was that like?
That was different because when I would visit, because I started visiting the US since I was 7. So when I would visit Nyack, or I'd go into the city. So when I got to Newburgh, it was definitely not what I expected because I was used to, homes being closer to each other, just a neighborhood, and everybody knows everybody. Everybody's Jamaican or Haitian or Trinidadian or whatever Caribbean island. But in Newburgh, you were just seeing predominantly white people. And yeah, you had Jamaicans, but it wasn't that great big plethora of Caribbean descendants. So it was definitely different. And you knew you were in a different country. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's pretty common to hear that when because I'm Trinidadian. So when people from the West Indies or the Caribbean, they tend to. I think we tend to stick together.
Yeah.
So we usually stick together in like metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
And like cities. And so for Caribbean people to go to upstate New York, to go to suburbia,
you're like, what?
It's like, what?
Yeah, definitely was an experience for sure.
So how did you get into the United States? What visa? What category? What was your port?
Status?
Your status. Yeah.
Okay. I entered as a visitor. And at the time, of course, we know we're not doing things the legal way. And it's not to say that we don't. It's just sometimes it's easier and it's less affordable to go the right way. Because first of all, as an international student, you have to be a part of a private school. It has to be a private school for you to get a study permit. And at the time, of course, I'm 16. I really didn't do my research. And even if I did, to be honest with you, I really didn't care much about doing that part. I just wanted to leave. So whatever I could say to my mother at that time to just go, that's what I said to her. So I went on a B1, B2 visitor's visa. And of course, overstayed because I'm only allowed to stay in the country for 6 months, and I stayed for 2 years. So, yeah.
Right. So you came as a visitor, but then how did you end up going to school?
Because you just let them, as long as I have my birth certificate, I had my transcript, they just let you in.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So so now what was that like? Because you had your education, system growing up. So
Yeah.
most of your education was in Jamaica. And so
Yes.
now you're in America and you're experiencing the American education system. So what was that like for you?
It was fun. It was fun because I didn't have to think. I left Jamaica being an average student. I'm being honest with you. I was just an average student. And when I got to the States, I was looked at as brilliant. They're like, "Oh my God, you're so smart." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm just the bare minimum right now." So I was bored. So I got into a lot of trouble because I would skip school because I wasn't being challenged. And even though I wasn't being challenged, I was still doing pretty good because I remember being nominated into Who's Who of high school in New York. They probably don't have it anymore, but I was nominated for those 2 years. I also got a couple of scholarships. I was on a roll, and I wasn't even trying. So, that gave me a bit of a self-esteem boost. When I was just average in Jamaica, I was top notch in New York.
Yeah, which is also another common thing, in talking with other Caribbean people, because the education system over there is a lot farther ahead.
Yeah.
So you come here to America and it's like you're actually ahead of everybody else.
Yep.
So
Yep.
now, did you ever feel a sense of like you were out of place, or that you didn't fit in with your peers?
No, I don't know if it's a thing with Jamaicans. People seem to be so fascinated with our culture that when I say I'm Jamaican, it's just like, "Oh my God, tell me more, speak this, do this." So it actually played to my strength by saying that I was from Jamaica. And one, I was smart, I was athletic, I did track and field. So it really wasn't that hard for me to acclimate. It really wasn't hard for me to make friends. And the kind of person that I am, the personality that I had, allowed for that even more. So it really wasn't that challenging for me.
All right. So I just wanted to shout out this quick comment here. Someone wished us good evening. Hi,
Hi,
Carla.
Colette.
Okay, just want to put that out there. All right. All right. So you graduate from high school.
Yes.
What happens now?
So I graduated from high school with honors and everything. And at the time, I was living with my aunt, but my dad was also living in the States. He lived in Texas. And of course, I had gotten all these scholarships, but I couldn't use them because I didn't have a social security number. So, of course, Texas is close to Mexico, and we all know what that means. It makes it a little bit easier for you to go to school. So I ended up going to community college without having any status. And of course, that was easy still. When I tell people the story of me doing chemistry, biology, and physics, and I told them, like, look, I used to get 110% without even trying. And I hate chemistry, and I'm not good at chemistry. So to this day, I can't understand how I would get these high scores. But it was so easy to me. But even though it was easy and school was fun for me and I was meeting new people, a part of me missed being home. So after 4 months, after 4 months, I decided I wanted to go home. And I knew going home, what that meant. It meant that, one, I would be banned from coming back to the States for a period of time because I had overstayed. Even though I had overstayed as a minor, there were still consequences. So I was banned for, they told me 5 years, but it didn't really matter because I didn't travel for another 10 years either way. So yeah, I went home. I went back for about 10 years in Jamaica and studied there, and then found my way here in Canada. And I travel back and forth to the States every now and again.
All right. So you were in high school in upstate New York.
Yes.
You weren't with your father at the time.
No, we didn't have a really good relationship. My dad left to go to the States when I was about 2. He would travel back and forth to Jamaica, but we didn't really have a close relationship. So my first thought isn't to go and live with him in moving to the States. It's okay, who am I closest to? I'm closest to my cousins. And, I decided to go to New York as a result of that. And of course, being a teenager, you start to act up, you start to do things, you start to find yourself, and you start to speak up. And that caused a lot of contention in my household. And as a result, in addition to not being able to go to college in New York, I had to relocate to Texas. And that didn't change, by the way. That I still was a little bit problematic.
You were wilding out.
Yeah. And it's just, to be honest, like I'm not gonna, sit here and say like I was this good. I had my moments, and I know it was deep rooted, as a result of some of the things that I had experienced as a child. And, here we are. We don't stay there. We evolve and we progress.
Yeah. Sorry, I just got another comment. Good evening, Queens. Just want to put that out there.
Hello, Kayla.
Hi, Kayla. All right. So we're in Texas, and you end up in community college. So
Yes.
I just wanted to point a few things out since the theme is about immigration.
Yeah.
So at this point, you did not have a social security number. So you overstayed your visitor visa.
Yes.
At this point. So the best you could have done was go to community college.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what was that like, having to, because you were brilliant, you were at honors, you were getting all these accolades, and then and just to take a step back, like, not that there's anything wrong with community college, I just want to put that out there.
Yeah.
But for someone like you, I would think you would have went to a 4-year college, you would have went to Ivy League, but
yeah, that's what I wanted to do, but I couldn't. So it felt a little defeated. I felt a little defeated knowing that I could do all of these things if I only had that 9-digit number, and I had actual status. I could just freely go into doing how I want to do it. But knowing that I was restricted, and I think that was really the main reason that I decided to leave, was the restriction. I'm not typically a person that likes to be restricted. So when I recognized that I couldn't work, I couldn't go to the school that I wanted, and I was living with my dad, who I really wasn't that close to, and there was no way for me to escape. I was like, you know what? I no longer want to live in this bondage. I'm going to go back home to somewhere that I can do whatever I want to do, however I want to do it, without having to look behind me constantly or second guess if I can do this because I don't have certain documents. So I just went home. It was the easiest decision for me to make because I love my freedom.
Yeah, and that's another common thing, is that you realize that there's a power to having a social security number, right? When you're going through an immigration journey, it's that social security number, and when you don't have it, you're stuck. You really can't do anything. You're only limited in resources. You're only limited to what you can do.
Yeah.
So now, how long were you in community college?
I did 4 months. I did 4 months, and I was like, okay, it's time for me to go home. I went home Christmas Day, 2005. I remember it like it was yesterday. Yep.
Wow. So when you were in community college, were you feeling bored like before, not challenged?
I think it was still the same. The only thing that challenged me, and surprisingly today I actually work in that industry, it was psychology. Everything else was just a bore to me, but psychology really got my mind going. That was the only class that I got less than an A+. I got a B+. I was like, oh, this must be good, because if if I got a B+, that must mean that this is challenging me, because everything else was just a bunch of A+. I'm like, okay. And it's so funny that that's where I am right now today, is with, being a therapist, is working as it relates to psychology. So
Yeah. So, okay, so tell me, let's go into that decision about what made you decide to, because that's another thing, right? So you didn't have a social security number, you already overstayed your visa.
yeah.
So the fact that you decided, I'm just going to leave the country knowing that you won't be able to come back.
Yeah. I
Tell
was
us
willing
about
to do
that.
that. I was willing to do it because I weighed the options, my freedom versus this. And I'm like, look, my freedom is not worth this. And my friends were back home, and I'm just like, I don't want to be here like this anymore. And I have this firm belief that whatever is mine is always going to be mine. And I think a part of me knew I would be able to travel again because I was a minor. So it's like, they don't hold it against you. So I was like, when I went back to the embassy, I'm like, well, I was 18. And she's like, well, you were 18 plus how many months? Because I was born in May. She said 18 plus 7 months. So you went over by 7 months. But so then that's how they barred me for I think it was 5 years, but don't quote me. But eventually they decided, you know what, with the trajectory of my life and where I was going, they were like, okay, well, we're just going to give it back to you. And they gave it back to me without hesitation. So
Wait, they gave what back to you?
my visitor's visa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, wait, I'm confused. I'm sorry. So,
No.
you're at the embassy. Okay.
I'll explain it. So when I left 2005, 10 years later is when I went back to the embassy to renew my passport and my visa. And of course, the thought is in your head, like, oh my God, do I tell them about what I've done? I've overstayed. And of course, I'm an honest person. So I told them everything. And they're like, okay. And I mean, frankly, they already know. Because I remember when I was leaving Texas, I got to New York. And that was the final leg was New York. When I was leaving New York, I know one of the immigration officers tagged me or something. I saw them do something. So I knew that I needed to just be honest and upfront when I went back to that embassy. And I told her, and she's like, okay, just make sure you don't do it again, because you're going to want to go to conferences and stuff like that. Even though I now live in Canada, I still have to visit the States every now and again. So, thankfully that didn't get in my way.
All right. So at this point you've already left the country. You wanted your freedom. You valued that. You didn't want to face the restrictions of being undocumented.
Yes, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't want. It's a lot, especially for a young person to be so
I know, right?
restricted, right? Because you're already in the country for like 3 or 4 years at this point, and it's to not be able to work legally, to not be able to, yeah, all that good stuff.
And they're like, "Oh, you need to marry someone." I'm like, "Hell no, I'm going home. I'm going home."
So wait, so your father, so you didn't have a great relationship with your father, right? Because I'm like, wait, your father could have sponsored you.
He could have. That's all I'll say.
All right. All right. So you already left the country.
Yeah.
You're back in Jamaica. All right. So what's going on there? You were there for 10 years. What were you doing during that time?
Living life, just doing it the way that I wanted to do it. I ended up going to college. Still didn't figure out what I wanted to do right away. I went through doing biochemistry to biology, and just it didn't work out. Because I think for me, for a very long time, I wanted to please my parents. My dad, he's in the sciences. My mom, she's an entrepreneur. So I'm just like, okay, who am I going to pick? I really, even though I wasn't close to my father, I really respected my father more because he was the one that I was closest to before he left. So it's just that memory of him was just kind of embedded in me. And I
Yeah.
really just wanted him to love me essentially. And if I was doing what he was doing, then he'd love me more is the thought that I have. Not recognizing that that was just not my lane because I was terrible at chemistry. Terrible, I tell you, just terrible at chemistry. And eventually I just flunked out an entire semester at the University of West Indies and was so distraught. My mother was so disappointed. I just took a whole year off and started working. I didn't tell my father though, because even though he was paying the tuition, I just had to take the year off because I needed to figure out what I wanted to do. And I still didn't figure it out because I ended up doing logistics and supply chain management, which is business. But to be honest with you, I'm not a processes kind of person. I'm really a people person. And it wasn't until I figured that out that I was able to really, etch out my path. And it took a while, but I wasted a lot of money. I wasted a lot of time, but I do believe that everything happened the way that it happened for a reason. There are lessons that I had to learn, experiences that I had to have. But essentially, they added some parts to my life that I don't think I would have had if I didn't have those experiences.
Yeah. So, did your father ever find out that you took the year off? Yeah. Do you want
Yeah,
to talk about it? What was his
yeah,
response?
he felt betrayed. He felt like I lied to him. But the truth is I was afraid to tell him because I kept changing my major. And the last time I told him that I was changing, he threatened me to say, if you change your major another time, I'm not gonna pay your tuition. So I couldn't tell him. In my head, I'm just like, there's no way I could tell him that I changed it again. And that's when I changed it to logistics and supply chain management. He I don't know if he has forgiven me. I'm hoping that he has. We speak now. So hopefully if he ever sees this, he knows that I'm truly apologetic about what I did. But it felt necessary at the time.
Well, I mean, you had to be true to yourself. Like, and you even said, like, you wanted his love, you wanted his affection, so
Yeah.
you figure, let me follow in his footsteps and come to realize that it's not
Yeah.
for you.
It's not for me. And I'm glad that I found my footing now. And I hope that people watching this can get that from the story. It's not about just my fun and jokes and kicks and giggles. It really is living your life for everybody else is to your detriment, especially if it's way off course from what you are supposed to do for yourself. You're wasting time, you're wasting money, you're wasting energy. So truly tap into who you are as a person and go in that direction. The people around you will love you either way. And even if they don't, that's okay.
As long as you love yourself.
Yes, that's it.
Do you find that it's more so um, because you have Caribbean parents? I find that with Caribbean parents, I find like even thinking of my own parents and all my aunties and uncles, they push education even more.
Yeah.
So do you find that there's even more of a pressure to succeed, you just because you're Caribbean?
Yeah, you don't have a choice. It's how it seemed to us, it's how it was perceived. Even when I have conversations with my friends, it's like your best your best is beyond what you think you're doing. It's beyond that. They're expecting you to excel, they're expecting you to be great. And if you're not great, and it dials into your mind that you have to be a perfectionist, and that in itself is problematic because you can't just accept the bare minimum. Not to say that the bare minimum is okay all the time, but you should be okay with getting a 70 or 80. When you get a 70 or 80, it's just like, so where's the rest of it? Where's the 30? Where's the 20? I'm like, well, it's where it is supposed to be. Like, this is what I have. And a grade doesn't determine what you're worth. A grade doesn't determine who you are. It's just, it's just really a measurement of how you perform. And you're not going to perform 100% all the time. And that's okay.
Yeah, it's only what it was at that moment,
Yeah.
and it's it'll if you put the work into it, it'll change later, right? So it
Yeah.
was just what that was at that moment.
Yeah.
But grades change, things change. So now I'm thinking about how. Wait, did you finished at University of Jamaica?
No, I didn't finish at UA. After flunking out, I tried again and I just couldn't get a hold on chemistry. And I was like, I took the year off and started to work. And then eventually, somehow it got, I was driven by money, which is very strange for me because I'm not typically driven by money. And I was like, okay, what career can I get into that for a lifetime I'm gonna be provided with the security of having a job? And logistics and supply chain management was it. Not sure how I came up with that answer, but I came up with it. Got into it, enjoyed it for a little bit, did what I had to do, graduated with honors, got to Canada. I think it was really a tool for me to get to Canada in looking back at my story, because without it, I wouldn't be here.
So let's get into that.
Yeah.
So, how did you even end up in Canada?
Oh boy. Again, I am such a person that loves to just escape, I think I'll call it, at that time. Because I left when I was 16 because I wanted to escape everything that was happening around me. I wanted to escape what was happening to me, what I was experiencing at the time. I was 26, 27. Um, life life wasn't even hard. Like, I was making a lot of money because I was a freelancer and I was working with mainly American companies. So I was making a lot of money. So I was comfortable, but I wasn't being challenged. And if you can already see the theme here. If I'm not challenged, I'm bored and I
Mhm.
get into problems. So I started to just, live a life that I wasn't pleased with. I was with people that I wasn't supposed to be with, doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing, and I needed a change. And I had already experienced the States, and I was like, next stop is Canada. How can I get there was the question. And I wrote down a pros and cons list because the truth
Wait,
is,
wait. So, but why Canada though? Why
I
not
mean,
any other country?
I don't know. That's a very good question. I think there was a thought that I've always wanted to experience Canada because I've heard Canada is so clean. Canadians are so nice. I was like, this is the perfect place for me. And I did some research. And at the time, I got the opportunity to do my master's in Texas at Texas A&M Galveston. And so that option was on the table. But then at the same time, I'm looking at that option where, yes, I would get a study permit this time, but I would want to be around my father, and he loves his own way. I love my own way. It's just a recipe for disaster. So I sat down and I did a pros and cons list to be like,
Mm.
okay, do I do my master's or do I go on this adventure to Canada? I mean, the master's was cool, but I'm like, in my head, having a master's, what do I gain from that? Yeah, my
Yeah.
father has one. And it's almost like I was doing it because he had one. And that's what I recognized at the time. So I sat in myself and I did that pros and cons list. And based on that list, Canada was the choice. And I found the way to get here by going to school again. Not excited about that part,
Mhm.
but I ended up going to a 1-year program at the Red River College here in Winnipeg.
All right. So you went to Canada on a student visa?
Yes, I did it the right way this time.
All right. So student visa, you end up in Canada. So now you're in so now you're in another country.
Yeah.
So what's that like? How was it when you got to Canada?
First of all, it was cold. It was -3 degrees. I had on this big winter jacket, and the person that picked me up from the airport was like, "Why do you have on a jacket? It's just -3." So of course the weather change was a shock to me because coming from Jamaica, we don't have winter. So the cold hit me for one. But outside of that, everything else, because I go into situations, with the mindset of it being an adventure and I'm about to explore and I'm about to have fun. So I really didn't have any traumatic experiences, nothing that would, cause me to say, okay, it's time to go home, until the process started for me to do my permanent residency. That's when things kind of got a little iffy. But when I got here, like I said, it was just an adventure to me, and I did the 1 year and got through it.
Yeah. So you finished the 1 year and you graduated at this point.
Yeah, graduated. And because the process, what it looks like at the time, I'll say, I don't know what it looks like right now. At the time, once you complete that 1 year, you're given a 1 year work permit. And having worked 6 months out of that 1 year, you then qualify to be nominated to get your permanent residency. So I did that, submitted the documents and everything. And the process started in 2018. Was it? Yeah, 2018. And boy, was it a long process. Didn't get through that process until last year, 2021. And it was supposed to only take 18 months.
So you're a resident now.
Yes, yes.
So it's funny how you have like a turn of events, how you were in the United States
Yeah.
and you were undocumented, you didn't have your freedom, you had to go back to your home country, right, where you went to school, but then you had to take a year off, but you were working
Yeah.
for that time, and then you decide, okay, instead of returning to America, you decide I'm going to go to Canada and do a whole other country, and you went to Canada for school. So I'm noticing school is a big theme here in your life, in your life journey.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah. This whole journey is just lessons learned through school. A big school,
yeah, so then you go to Canada for school. You were there so it was a 1 year program. So
Yeah, a
it was
1 year program.
oh, so was it like an accelerated intense program?
What they call it is a postgraduate. I did it in international business, so it's just a 1 year diploma.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
I'm
what
gonna
is
be
that?
honest with you. It really is just a way to get here. I mean, a lot of people know this. I don't know if they say it out loud, but it really is just a way to get your permanent residency. And they know this. The government knows that people want to live here. And I mean, what we're spending for this 1 year, we spent at least $14,000. So it's a money making industry as far as I'm concerned. So it's not like we come here for free. We're paying triple what a Canadian citizen or permanent resident would pay. So we're essentially paying our way to come here.
Right, because you're not just um out of like not out of state, but it's you're not in the territory, like you're coming from a
Yeah,
whole other country. So,
exactly.
I imagine, what other international students are going through, having to study in a whole other country
Yeah.
and having to pay double and even triple those fees just for
Yeah.
education.
It's worse now too. Like I only paid $14,000, and that's just for tuition. We haven't considered, food, residency. We haven't considered those things. And I don't think people understand. They hear immigrant and they automatically probably think, refugee. Especially here in Canada, they hear, oh, you're an immigrant, so they think refugee, that we're taking from the country, we're not giving anything. Immigrants work the most, at least here in Canada. We work the most, 2 to 3 jobs at a time. I did it. I did it, and I would probably never do it again. But we work so hard because we know that we're coming from a situation that was worse off for some. And we're just trying to make it better here. So we're paying a lot of taxes. So we're not coming to take, we're legitimately just coming to find better life. And we make do with what we have. And at the same time, we work really, really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's that that stereotype when it comes to outsiders and immigrants, like,
Yeah.
oh, you're not paying taxes, you're taking from the government, you're um, employers can pay you less, right? Because immigrants are not reporting it, and therefore everyone else is underpaid because they're taking immigrants and they're looking at them as cheap labor,
Yeah.
right? So um, it's it's all those negative stereotypes
Yeah.
when it comes to immigration, and you were experiencing that.
Yeah. And it wasn't a fun experience, but for the most part, I kind of drown stuff like that out, and you don't experience it that much here in Canada. You'll hear every now and again they'll say things, but it's not the predominant voice. You'll probably hear it 10% of the time, if that. But I thought it was very important to say that because a lot of people have a misunderstanding of the whole blanket of immigration, and there's so many things that fall under immigrants or immigration that it's very good for you to be mindful of what you're saying and who you're speaking to, because we, like I said, we pay to come here. This wasn't, oh, I just show up at the border and boom, I had to pay out of pocket to do this, and it was an investment, one that paid off really good, but it's not something that's it's not an easy choice for a lot of people, because a lot of people would want to, but the finances just aren't there.
So, what did your parents think of this when you decided to go to Canada?
Can't you tell that I make my own decisions already?
Oh,
Can't you tell? When I make up my mind that I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
So well, I mean, I'm just curious because, a lot of your high school and college experience is like you were like catering to your father in a way. So now you decided you're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you ever, brought it up to your dad about, even going to Canada.
Yeah, I did. It's so funny. I was there. I was in Texas just before I came to Canada. So I stayed with him for a couple of months, so he saw me go through the entire process of getting the visa, having to take the photos, having to do the police record, all of these things. He saw it. He knew what the outcome should have been and how long it should have taken. Things don't work out that way, and that's okay. But he supported me as best as he could. I was grown in his eyes at the time. I was 20 odd. So he was just like, all right, that's what you want to do. Okay, cool. Go ahead.
So what was it like going? So now you're comparing. Let me think of my question. So now you went to school in America, you went to school in Canada.
Yeah.
How are the two different realities?
I don't know if they're comparable. I don't. They were two separate experiences, especially I was a teenager versus an adult. Teenage me was a rebel. I mean, adult me is still a rebel, but teenage me didn't know myself, and adult me knew what I wanted and the direction I wanted to go. And I think it was by coming here and just quieting the noise of what was in Jamaica and what was expected of me, I was able to hear what I wanted to do and how I wanted my life to look. And in hearing that, I pushed towards that instead of what I would have pushed towards to as a teenager. So I think that's the difference. It's my mindset is completely different. So it's hard to compare those two.
So you're doing more of what you want to do as an adult. So like you couldn't really do what you wanted to do as a teenager, but now that you're an adult and I'm assuming you paid your own way into Canada.
Yeah, I did. With a little help, for the most part from my dad. But outside of that, I think it's good to mention that through being a teenager, you're kind of conditioned to people please. You're conditioned to please your parents, whoever is around you, you're conditioned to please them. And when you get to a certain age, yes, that people pleasing can continue. But I think for me, that just wasn't an option because I was already suffering all those years. I was like, it's from one extreme to the next. So I was like, I'm not going to people please. I'm just going to go to the next extreme, which is to be self-reliant, make my own decisions. Whether you like it or not, I'm going to do it.
And you had the power to do that because
Yeah.
now that you're a resident, it's like you don't have to worry about. And no, but even before that, you had, I guess, school as a cover because in order for you to get the
Permanent.
residency,
Yeah.
you had the work permit. So
Yes.
you didn't have to worry about working illegally or
Nothing.
and nothing
So
like that
free. This
because
was so
you had
free.
the protection,
I
of
did. I had
school,
the
yeah.
security of having that social insurance number. Yes, it started with a 9 because you're a student, but then eventually it switched to a different number because now I'm a resident. So either way, I had some form of status until I didn't actually. I mean, that's a whole different story. My whole process didn't go the way that it was supposed to go. And that's because I made a mistake on the application, and that kind of just put me in a position where I had to divulge some information that I never thought I'd had to divulge. And it really prolonged my process. But I look back at that and it was such a blessing. And I know it's so hard for people to understand sometimes when I tell the story. It got to the point where I was about to be removed from the country because of that mistake that I made. I checked off the wrong box. And when they tried to get the information, I gave it to them, but it just didn't make sense to them. I got to the point where they're like, okay, you have a month left to be in the country. And I was almost about to lose it. And it's so funny, in the back end, what was happening was that I was being basically groomed to be the person that I am today. It taught me resilience. It taught me, consistency. It taught me discipline. It taught me trust and patience. Oh, it taught me trust and patience. It taught me to trust my intuition when they asked me, because the program that I had gone through to get my permanent residency was based on working for someone else. However, things had changed where I started a business, which is the business that I'll tell you about shortly. And in starting that business, I then used it. I kind of flipped it because at the end of the day, I couldn't work for anybody because they had taken my status away because of the breakdown in my process. So I had to I started a business because I had already had the thought of doing it. So when I started it, I used that to complete the process. And I had to hire a lawyer, and the lawyer's like, you need to get a job because that's how they nominated you. And I'm like, nope, I am not, because I know that I'm supposed to do it this way. I remember telling my partner, and they're like, Caurel, you're paying all of these thousands of dollars for this lawyer. You're not listening. I'm like, I'm listening to my intuition. My intuition says I should not work for anybody. I need to just go through with this business. And once I go through with this business, everything's going to be fine.
We've already established you're a rebel, so
yes.
You don't take instruction very well, so
I don't.
That seems to be the story of a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, you go against the grain, right? And it worked out. And when it worked out, everybody was so shocked. They're like, how did you do that? I'm like, I listen to my intuition because my intuition is strong. And sometimes it's not my intuition, sometimes it's my ego. But when you listen to your intuition, you are guided to where you need to be, and things just happen. Things that to the mind, logics, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't, but it makes sense to me.
So wait, so you were able to use your business as employment for the application?
Yeah, to finish it up. Because they were like, oh, you don't have any economic value, because I wasn't working at the time, because I couldn't work. So when I started to establish the business, started to have clients, blah, 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 they're like, okay, well, now you have some economic value. And that's what I use, because I was tempted to go and get a job. I actually filled out the application and I was like, this doesn't feel good. I'm not going to do this. They were just waiting for me to give them my social insurance number. And I was like, I'm not doing this. I'm not. I'm just going to stick to my guns, and I'm going to continue with this business. And that's what I did. So I registered the business, got all the documents necessary, sent it to the lawyer, and they sent all of that in. And within about 2 weeks, I got the letter. Congratulations, you're a permanent resident.
Yay! Where's my round of applause sound effect? Let me do that. It's so I'm sure that was a relief, right?
I
Because
screamed. I cried. I screamed. I all types of emotions happened that morning. I'm sure my neighbor was wondering what was going on, but she doesn't even understand the relief, the peace of mind that I got from that email.
yeah, it's when it comes to any kind of immigration journey, it's such a battle just to, and I was speaking to the previous guest about it on this topic. It's such a battle to get that social security, well, we call it social security number, to get that number, to get residency, um, to to be able to get a status and to be able
Yeah,
to be recognized. Like it's such an arduous journey to be
it
able
is.
to get recognition under the law.
It is, and sometimes you question yourself, like, why did I do this? And I wanted to tie it back to something that I had said earlier, that at one point I was deciding to go home. I was like, there's no way in hell I am going to go through this any longer. And like I said, it taught me patience because I was at my wits' end. I would get so mad. I'm like, who told them this is their land for them to be giving me status? You get so resentful, and it really plays on your emotions. It plays on your psyche, your mental. When you are at the mercy of someone else for them to tell you whether or not you can stay somewhere permanently, temporarily, it's the worst feeling. You have this feeling in your throat, like you are at somebody else's disposal, basically.
Yeah, you're at someone else's mercy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now that you have the residency, now you can travel to America easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did actually in March. I was there for what, 2 months?
So what was that like coming back to America?
uh, First of all, people are so anxious where I went. I went to Houston. They are so anxious. It's so fast paced in Houston. And because I'm not necessarily accustomed to that, because I'm not, even though my city is major, it's not a major US city. So when I got there, I was like, people are so anxious. People are just so angry. People are just so, ah. And I'm just like, okay, here I am, just grounded. And just observing it and be like, man, there's a lot of people that are in a lot of pain. But it was fun to see the people that I haven't seen in years. Because of course, with COVID and everything, even if I could have traveled, I wouldn't be able to either way. So it was good to see my dad. It was good to see people that I had connected with before. But it was freeing to get to that immigration officer, and he's like, may I see your documents, please? And I was just like, here.
It's
He's
a
like,
triumph.
I know, right?
Triumph.
And he's like, so are you bringing any gifts? And I'm like, I am the gift. And he laughs. Yeah, it was definitely a trip for sure.
Yeah, yeah. All right. I know we're having a lot of fun, but I'm going to start to wind things down now. All right. So, do you have any um, final words of wisdom you'd like to share? Any parting words? Anything
Uh,
you want the people to know?
yeah, absolutely. Know who you are. Know who you are, know what you stand for, and stick to it. Your greatest gift is in that. Someone might call you hard-headed, they might call you stubborn, but when you know who you are, you go places. You go in the direction that you're supposed to go for your ultimate good. So stick to that. Stick to that even when you have pushback, because you will get pushback.
Yeah. And I just wanted to, another thing I want to point out is the fact that you were financially able to afford a lawyer, you were financially able to pay your way into another country. So there is um, a financial privilege that you had. And I just wanted to point that out there.
Yeah,
Like anyone going through immigration, not everyone has that financial privilege. And
that's
that's what
true.
you had.
That's true. And I was so grateful for the fact that one, if even though I didn't necessarily need my father's help all the time, that I had the wherewithal, I had that entrepreneurial spirit, that I was a freelancer for so long that I just went back to what I always knew to support me through those moments where I couldn't legally work in Canada. So I'm telling you, all of the things that I experienced in Jamaica, good, bad, and ugly, they came to my rescue in that moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right, my dear. Thank you so much for joining me today and for telling us your story. This was awesome.
Yes.
All right, let's get to your promo. All right, you guys. So, Caurel Richards, she doesn't have much. So, there it is. Just a website and an Instagram, you guys. So, I encourage you to check out her website. It is www.indivinethyme.com. So, if you want to learn about her services, everything that she has to offer, I encourage you to check her out on the web. And you can also follow her on Instagram, Divine Time. That is it. There's only a couple things that she has up there, so it's easy
Yeah.
for you to remember. So check her out online, www.indivinethyme.com, and check her out on Instagram. Follow her on Instagram,
Yeah.
Divine Time.
.com.
Yes. So that information, you guys, is scrolling below at the bottom of your screen. For my video people and for my audio people, I did not forget about you. That information is in the description. So for all of our audience, however you are taking in this episode, this information is at your fingertips. All right. So Caurel, tell us about your business. Let's shout out your business.
Right. So, of course, as you've mentioned, it's called In Divine Thyme. It's In Divine Thyme Transformational Services. I actually work with women, men who have complex childhood trauma that they haven't released, and they're kind of stuck in those patterns that are preventing them from, being in the career that they want to be, being in the relationships that they want to be in. I work with releasing and reinstalling better beliefs that will actually allow for you to get excited about life again, because we only have one life to live. So why not do it? I've recently launched a program called Step Into Your Power program, which allows for you to move from feeling unworthy to full self acceptance, because it's through self acceptance that you will be able to step into your greatest power. Imagine releasing all of those beliefs that are keeping you stuck, and you can actually learn to step into who you are and have a fresh perspective on life.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. So, if you are looking for, so do you provide like one-on-one counseling? How does that work?
Yes, so everything is one on one. I make sure it's pretty much tailored because we all have different needs. So I want to make sure that I'm considerate of the needs that you have come to me with. Whether, like I said, it's your career, your business, your relationship, and if it is just simply just being you as a person, because, like I said, the life that we have, it's your right. It is your right to live it the way that you want to live it. And there are certain beliefs that are keeping us stuck from doing those things. And those beliefs, I actually help you reframe and release so you can step into your power.
All right, fabulous. And you're virtual, in person.
Virtual. Absolutely virtual, because I want to make sure that my reach is as far as it can be. And I definitely would love to travel to every country, but it makes sense just to make it virtual since we are living in a virtual world at this point.
Okay. I mean, do you have people that come to you
Yeah,
and kind of
locally. Yeah,
locally?
locally
Yeah.
here in Winnipeg. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. So there you go. So I don't know if you happen to be in Canada and in Winnipeg, and if you happen to be watching this, or listening to this, she takes local clients, so check her out. But yes, but most of the services are virtual. It
Yeah.
sounds like so. There you go. So there you have it. So if you're looking to step into your power, go to her website again, www.indivinethyme, that's thyme.com. And she has um, the same account name for the Instagram, Divine Time. All right, Caurel, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
I tried. Thank you. I tried. All right, I will place you off camera now. And you guys, where's my banner? Hold on, there's my banner. All right, it is you and me, guys. All right, so you guys, we have reached, and we're a little over time, but that's okay. We have reached the conclusion of our episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. I would love to hear your feedback about this episode. So please leave a comment in the comment section or in the comment thread. I would love to hear your feedback. It definitely helps our algorithm. So please drop a note, whether that's Facebook or Twitter, um, whatever platform that you're watching this, if it happens to be on video, drop a line, especially on YouTube. Yes, but even on audio, because eventually this will be on audio. So if you happen to be listening to this on a podcast platform, whether it's Spotify or Apple or Podchaser, Google Podcast, whatever that is, drop a rating. Let us know what you thought about this episode. Drop us a rating. We definitely will appreciate the feedback. And I also want to remind you guys that Hot Topics is a part of A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. That is the company that is taking charge of this podcast. I encourage you to reach out to us. So if you're looking for a tutor, whether it's for your child or whether it's for yourself, because we do work with adults, please reach out to us. Our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. You can also find us on our multiple social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, a couple others I can't think of right now, but we are on multiple social media platforms. So check us out and don't forget to follow us. So follow us, subscribe, like, whatever the call to action is, do it. So if you're looking for a tutor, you need some academic help, you're struggling, homework help, test prep, all that, reach out to us. Again, our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. And finally, I want to let you know that Hot Topics has a text list, so you will learn anything and everything about Hot Topics podcast. You'll know about upcoming live episodes. You'll learn about the audio releases. You will learn all that. I encourage you to sign up for our text list. All you have to do is text the code Hot Topics to 917-764-3975. Again, just text the code Hot Topics to 917-764-3975 and you will be on our text list. And that is it. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for being a part of this episode. And I look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Thank you again, you guys. And now I am signing off.